Black gold is back, and this time it's not just shaking markets, it's threatening to fracture the global order. The supply chain crisis triggered by US-Iran conflict is already being compared to the oil shocks of the 1970s. Some are calling it the third oil shock. But this isn't the 1970s. The rules have changed. Back then, the world depended entirely on the Middle East for oil. Today, the United States is the largest oil producer on Earth. So why is America still fighting over oil in the Middle East? The answer begins with a contradiction. The US has excess light crude, but it desperately needs heavy crude. Crude oil is classified into light, medium, and heavy based on API gravity and sulfur content. Brent and West Texas Intermediate, WTI, are representative low sulfur light crudes. Dubai crude is high sulfur medium crude. Generally, light crude has a relatively simple refining process and is considered high quality. That's why Brent crude typically trades at higher prices than Dubai crude. In 2010, the global oil production rankings were Russia, 10.45 million barrels, Saudi Arabia, 8.13 million barrels, and the US, 7.77 million barrels. 15 years later, everything flipped. By 2025, the US surged to first with 21.18 million barrels. Russia, 10.59 million barrels, and Saudi Arabia, 9.42 million barrels followed. The result of America's shale revolution in the 2010s, a massive expansion of light crude production. But here's the paradox that changes everything. The United States is the largest oil producer in the world, and yet it still can't run its own system. The US imports 7 to 8 million barrels of crude every single day, and 60 to 70% of that is heavy crude from Canada. A paradoxical structure has formed. The world's #1 producer is also one of its biggest importers. In January this year, Reuters reported on US measures related to Venezuela. The US Gulf Coast has the world's largest and most complex heavy crude refineries. And most Venezuelan oil is heavy, high sulfur crude, one of the most ideal crudes for US refiners. Venezuela is considered to hold some of the world's largest heavy crude reserves. Now the real story begins. If Venezuela is the source of the heavy crude America needs, then this war isn't just about Iran. It's about control. About 20% of China's crude imports come from Iran. And for years, something critical has been happening beneath the surface. US sanctions pushed Iranian and Venezuelan oil out of global markets, but they didn't remove it. They redirected it straight to China at discounted prices. Cheap energy meant cheaper manufacturing, and cheaper manufacturing meant a stronger China. Iran and Venezuela became quiet pillars of China's industrial rise, and that's the real threat. Accordingly, America's moves to bring Venezuela and Iran back under controllable range are not just political. They are structural. This is about reshaping the flow of energy itself, because the essence of global power has never changed. Control the supply, control the system. And right now, that system is being contested. Why is America so focused on crude oil? In the late 2010s, the world was convinced oil was dying. Decarbonization, net zero, the end of fossil fuels. But reality is telling a very different story. According to OPEC and Statista, global crude demand in 2010 averaged 84.8 million barrels per day. It rose to 100.27 million barrels by 2019. It fell to 91.19 million during COVID, and then surged back to 105.15 million barrels last year. Demand isn't disappearing. It's growing, driven by industrial expansion in emerging economies like India and Southeast Asia. According to the International Energy Agency, IEA, more than half of recent oil demand growth has come from petrochemicals. Plastics, not fuel. Aviation fuel demand is also rising. Meanwhile, electric vehicles, once expected to collapse oil demand, are scaling slower than predicted. There are now over 40 million EVs on the road. Sounds like a lot. But globally, there are over 1.5 billion cars. The actual reduction in oil demand? Less than 2%. Oil isn't disappearing, not anytime soon. And that's why this conflict matters. The war between Iran and the US-Israel is already triggering a global energy supply crisis. Companies are scrambling for alternative routes. Supply chains are shifting in real time, and every disruption feeds into one thing: higher prices. And higher prices don't stay in markets. They hit people. Fuel, food, cost of living. Everything rises. Ironically, this war is driving Trump himself into a political crisis, creating internal fractures inside the United States. What began as a geopolitical move is becoming a domestic pressure point. It doesn't matter if you're left or right, socialist or capitalist. The system doesn't care. The global economy moves as one organism regardless of ideology. And when energy flows are disrupted, everything reacts. So don't just watch the war. Watch what comes after it. Because this isn't just a conflict. It's a restructuring. A restructuring of supply chains, of power, of the global economy itself. The world after this war won't stabilize. It will shift. And once it does, there's no going back. If you want to understand why the world's largest oil producer is fighting wars over oil it doesn't even use, not through surface-level news, but through the structural imbalance of heavy and light crude, the China containment strategy, and the reality that oil demand isn't going anywhere, subscribe to Endgame Economics. Because energy wars don't end when the shooting stops. They end when control changes hands. Stay aware, stay prepared, stay ready.